this game and the Bengals-Ravens, one of these should have been in the 4 o'clock window, my opinion. But they're in the 1 o'clock window. A lot of AFC playoff implications here. But, yeah, the Texans with a walk-off field goal win, 59-yard field goal to win it. A lot of controversy toward the end as far as the Bills' decisions. And, I don't know, a lot to unpack here for this Texans-Bills game.
I mean, the most obvious thing of which, I guess, is Josh Allen's stat line. Like, just that on itself. Like, normally the box score, whatever, could tell a story. 9 for 30 for 131 yards, a touchdown, no interceptions, a passer rating of 56.4. There is something about playing the Houston Texans that brings the crazy out of Josh Allen.
You've been referencing his random lateral to no one
right,
in the playoff
game,
which was in Houston.
Yeah,
you've been referencing that for 5 years now.
It's the archetypal Josh Allen play, right, where he went absolutely batshit insane in a wild card playoff game and attempted one of the craziest laterals anybody has ever attempted in the NFL. And one of the sort of defining characteristics of Josh Allen since then is that he doesn't tend to do that anymore, right? They've kind of, that was peak Josh Allen, just Will Levis-like, absolute lunacy. And then they kind of got those plays out of Josh Allen. And yeah, every now and again he'll make some mistakes or force a pass, but they've gotten the sort of total crazy out of him, right? And made him a much better player in large part because of it. But something about playing the Texans seems to bring that out of him again. And he was, like, this was the game, the meltdown game that Allen hadn't had for a while. He had in this game.
I don't think it was crazy. I mean, so him going 9 of 30, we have a stat for that. Curtis Seabolt has a tweet on that. 9 for 30. He was the first quarterback to attempt at least 30 passes and complete fewer than 10 since Seattle's Stan Gelbaugh in 1992. Kind of a different game back in 92. Just the 13th quarterback to do it since the merger. Like, this is rookie season Josh Allen type stuff. If he did this his rookie season, it would be like, well, of course he does this. He was doing this at Wyoming, going 9 for 30. It was, I mean, I went throw by throw. I had to see it. It was almost like immediately the Texans did have him rattled. I mean, this wasn't like he had 8 turnover-worthy plays or anything like that. He's had games like that. He did have 2 before the half, one of which was a throwback across his body that probably should have been, I mean, certainly should have been caught.
He tried to throw an interception to Al Shahir on consecutive snaps, I think.
Yeah. And the first one's like you're trying to seam route, and if it gets caught, it's not a big deal. It just missed. The second one was the Brett Favre in the NFC Championship throwback across your body that probably gives the Texans a field goal before the half.
But the first one was also like it was a touchdown if he threw it accurately, and instead he tried to throw it directly to the linebacker.
Yeah,
like it was really bad, but in a completely different way. And it was like his response to that was to do the play that he had the other week where he's running and attempts the pass on the sideline. You're like, wow, only Josh Allen makes these throws. And instead it went the exact way that every other player happens when they try and make that throw, which is, what are you doing? You can't throw that straight to a linebacker from there.
No.
But this was like, it was like that, the Jets game at the start of last year. We're like, the only thing that can give the Jets any prayer in this game. Rodgers just went down. His Achilles blew. The entire building is bummed out right now. The only thing that can make this game go in the Jets' direction is Josh Allen having a complete and total meltdown like a nuclear reactor. And that's what was happening. This was that game. Allen was just a nightmare.
It was like right off the bat, listen, he wasn't seeing things well. It might be the Texans' uniforms. Those were awful. But you could tell he wasn't seeing it. Texans came out playing tight man coverage. The windows weren't there.
He started 1 for 9.
Yeah. It was off right from the beginning. So early on, Texans were playing tight man coverage. There's nowhere to throw. Kind of get it. But then, love the route, right, where you fake the dig and go deep, especially against a quarter safety. He has Mac Hollins yards behind the defense and just misses the wide open deep ball, which, by the way, that was the same play they came back to when they were backed up at the 3-yard line and trying to flip the field at the end of the game, and just missed that one as well. So he was missing open receivers. He wasn't seeing it well. He had an open screen. I think it was open. Screen pass, just didn't throw it and took a sack instead. I mean, everything about it was bad. It looked unsure on a deep out and sailed that one out of bounds. He had a scramble drill to Mac Hollins that he just one-hopped and, probably could have had 100 yards of passing yards to Mac Hollins that he just completely missed. Mac also screwed one up along the sideline on one of the good throws that Josh Allen made. But it was rookie year Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Where it was inaccuracy, it was indecision, it was bad decision making. It was awful. This was the worst Josh Allen game I think I've seen since his rookie season.
He has played Houston 4 times in his NFL career. The highest passing grade at PFF he has in those 4 games is 64.7. And he has...
So it's not just these City Connect uniforms or whatever they were pulling off here.
And he has 10 turnover-worthy plays in those 4 games. There is something about playing Houston that just causes him to melt down.
And I was saying from Houston's perspective, this was a huge test for them to say, hey, we can play with the Bills, right? This is the C.J. Stroud era where we need to be able to play with the Bills and play with the Ravens and play with the Chiefs. Stroud was very good overall the past game. He finishes 28 of 38 for 331, had that long touchdown, but almost single-handedly letting the Bills back into the game with an interception and fumble in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Right? This was a 20-3 game, and the Bills creeping back in with, James Cook touchdown. Then they get the Keon Coleman play on 4th and 5, 49 yards, where he looked like, did he step out of bounds?
No, he didn't, but he came damn close to it on 2 separate occasions. He had one of those ones where his toe was inbounds. Had his heel come down, it would have been out of bounds, but it stayed in the air.
Hovered.
So he just kept himself inbounds. And then a couple of strides later, the foot came down and the toe was like millimeters inside the white line. Phenomenally close to stepping out of bounds twice with no reason for it. Like he just went that close to the sideline for no good reason.
So anyway, Bills brought it back to 2020, and there was some fourth quarter turnovers in there from Stroud.
It always sounds stupid when you say this, but outside of the 2 really bad turnover-worthy type plays, Stroud played really well. And honestly, it's another game where it reflects really well on Brian Flores. Like what Brian Flores made Stroud look like in that game versus what the Buffalo Bills defense made him look like, which is a good defense. Like Buffalo's defense is really good and confusing. I mean, there was a Bill Belichick segment before all the games on that show that he does that I can't remember the name of ever, where he was talking about Buffalo's defense is like a roulette wheel. You never know what you're going to get pre-snap. They make you do it all post-snap. It is a difficult defense to diagnose, and yet Stroud was able to look really good diagnosing that relative to Brian Flores' defense where he was lost, right? So Stroud was really impressive in this game, but did make a couple of mistakes to let Buffalo in. Buffalo's team outside of Josh Allen actually did really quite well to keep them in it and give them a chance to come back. And then we get to that crazy sequence at the end of the game, which we have to talk about.
All right, so let's get to that. The Bills, first off, the Texans have the ball at the Buffalo 39, right? It's a 20-20 game. There's 44 seconds left. I have to vent about this for 1 second. I don't know if you agree or not. Mm-hmm. C.J. Stroud, it's 3rd and 5, gets called for intentional grounding. He's under pressure. The slot receiver is running a little whip route, a little return route. He throws the out route. And so to me, it's a miscommunication. They call the intentional grounding because the receiver's not in the area.
Right.
You know me, I detest the intentional grounding when there's miscommunication between the quarterback and the receiver. Letter of the law, did he throw a pass to an area that did not have a receiver in the area? Yes, that's true. But the letter of the law and the spirit of the law is, I'm just trying to save myself and I'm just chucking it to nobody. The spirit of the law to me is like, there's a miscommunication there. Right. When you have option routes, you should not be able to call grounding if it's that obvious. He wasn't throwing it to no one. Yeah. To me, the grounding has to be obvious if you're going to call it. But this took Houston out of field goal range on 3rd and 5. Right. So they have to punt. It's 4th and 15.
They punt
with 41 seconds. Good punt. It downs the Bills at the 3. So the Bills start a drive at their own 3. 32 seconds left, and it's a tie game.
Yeah. Critically, Houston has all 3 timeouts. So Buffalo at their own 3-yard line, 32 seconds on the clock, with Houston having all 3 timeouts left. What do?
I mean, probably go to overtime.
Okay. Now, Buffalo.
So if you run the ball 3 times,
you make Houston use up all the timeouts.
Houston uses all 3 timeouts.
Punt the ball back to them and make them.
With 32 seconds left, if you run the 7 play, there'll be about 10 to 15 seconds left, probably, right? 6 or 7 second run plays.
Maybe not even that, but yeah. I'm sorry, maybe more than that, but yes, that idea.
Even if there's 18 seconds left.
Yeah.
Instead, we see incomplete, and then a punt.
The other thing,
go ahead.
Remember one of the things, the people that rail against analytics, right? It's always through the lens of the head coach knows better because he can see the things in the game that you're not factoring in, even though the analytics typically factors in most of the things that people say. But one of the things, for example, so if you're looking at this, you're Sean McDermott, it's not an unreasonable thing in a vacuum, in a broad sample size over a couple of years to say, Josh Allen is one of the best quarterbacks in the game right now. Maybe the only guy that you would take ahead of him is Patrick Mahomes. Allen is capable of going 60 yards in 30 seconds from his own 3-yard line. Let's give him a chance to do it. Let's put the ball in Josh Allen's hands and let's give him a chance to go win this game, right? That's not an unreasonable thing to say, right? What that data is not factoring in is that in this particular game, Josh Allen was busy absolutely melting down and had a much higher chance of throwing the ball to the defense than he did of throwing it to his own receivers.
I mean, to be fair, his completion percentage was much higher. He was 9 for 27 at the time that the drive started.
But if you're of the opinion that the head coach takes the broad data set and then modifies it for the game that data set is not factoring in, that modification in this game would be, dude, hand that ball off. Do not let Josh Allen attempt another pass.
Yeah. The thing I mentioned on the instant reaction show last night, so you drop back to pass and they start chucking it deep, including on 2nd and 10, as I mentioned, they ran the same. I mean, they're going for the kill shot, the in and go that was wide open earlier in the game. As a move, like going back to the play that was wide open earlier, I don't hate that. But what I hate is when you drop back from the 3 against a pretty good Texans pass rush, you're just inviting not just a loss on a punt and a walk-off field goal, you're inviting a loss on a safety. You're putting the pressure on your offensive line, don't hold in the end zone. You know Allen's going to scramble around or has the ability to scramble around and make plays. As soon as he scrambles outside of the pocket, you have that, the worry about the holding call. There's so many things that could have gone wrong here for the Bills. But here's what the payout would have been. Josh Allen hits a big 30-yarder, 40-yarder. You're still 20 to 25 yards outside of field goal range, right? You need multiple big plays down here just for a payout that makes sense if you're the Bills. To me, I'm usually aggressive, but the downside was just too much here for the Bills. So they go 3 and out with 3 incompletions. There's 16 seconds left, 56-yard punt. Robert Woods returns it for 13 yards and one little 5-yard run, and it's a 59-yard field goal is no gimme.
Sure,
but it's the Fairbairn hits it, and it's a walk-off win for Houston.
Yeah, it's just an amazing sequence. Like I said, in a normal game, I actually have some sympathy with the idea of we have Josh Allen, he's a super freak. Let's let him cook, right? I know it's a risk. You might take a safety. These are the risks you take in order to play to the strengths of a guy like Josh Allen, right? It's a risk every time you let him leap over a linebacker. You still let him do it because he's a freak show. So I have some sympathy in a normal game to say, let Josh Allen be Josh Allen. He's one of the few quarterbacks in the NFL I think you give that chance to. Not in this game. Not the way he's playing. It was not going to happen, right? And you were only going to cause problems, i.e., you stop the clock 3 times, you give the ball back to Houston. They have all their timeouts. Like you were giving Houston a chance to win this game more than you were giving yourself a chance to win the game. That effectively is what this was, right? You could try and play for overtime, which normally I'm against, or you could try and win it yourself. But I think they were giving the Texans a chance to win this game more than they were giving themselves a chance to. And that's what it boils down to.
Just one of those games we're going to look back on. Look, Houston moves to 4-1. Their only loss, of course, to the powerhouse Vikings. Bills falling to 3-2. Playoff seeding, home field advantage, playoff positioning. Might see this matchup again. But Buffalo's back-to-back weeks here. Got beat up by Baltimore on Sunday Night Football, and then losing heartbreaker. Which, look, they didn't have in hand for most of the game anyway, but they made it into a game, right? Buffalo. The narrative could have easily shifted and said Buffalo won this game despite Josh Allen going 9 for 30. They almost pulled that off, right? The idea of winning a game when your quarterback's not at his best, which is huge for the Bills. to not have to rely on Allen. But
which has been the case for some of the time this season. Like, they have not, again, we've said a good thing for Buffalo is they haven't had to rely on Josh Allen much this season. Then they had a game where he was Superman, and then they had this game, which is the one they hadn't had for a while, which is what happens when Allen completely implodes. And that's what happened here. Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.